The Tim Heale Thirsty Thursday live stream from 7 until 9 weekly. Here's your host, Tim Heale.
I'd just like to say a really big thank you to everybody that has wished me happy birthday. And all I would like for my birthday is if people could click the like button on my YouTube channel and my podcasts. And if you want to put a bit of icing on there, if you could subscribe to the channel, that would be brilliant. And the cherry on top of the cake, well, if you could just put a comment and then share it, that would be awesome. Thank you very much for my birthday wishes again. Cheers.
The Tim Heale Podcasts. Ordinary people's extraordinary stories.
Thirsty Thursday live stream from 7 until 9 weekly. Here's your host, Tim Heale.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Thirsty Thursday live stream. We've got a few guests coming in tonight, so we should have quite a good chat. We've certainly got enough to chat about this week. The news that came out today, Boris is having a shufti with getting rid of loads and loads of illegal migrants down to, is it Rwanda? So Priti Patel's down there signing a deal at the moment. Today, or was it yesterday, 600 came across the channel in boats. With the settled weather we've got for this weekend, looks like we're going to get a few more coming across. And what the French doing? Next to nothing. So, without too much of ado, let's bring in guest number one. So, here's an old mate of mine. Nigel, good evening.
Evening, Tim.
How you doing?
Yeah, a bit sore, but that's nothing new with the amount of injuries I've got. But I'm all right, thank you. You keeping well?
Yeah, not too bad. Mustn't grumble, as they say in that song. Mustn't grumble. So, you've been doing a little bit of walking lately? Been tearing around mountains and stuff like that?
I'm getting more mountains to tear around now that COVID restrictions are becoming something we can deal with a bit easier. So this year, I think I'll spend about half of it in the country and the other half somewhere exotic, stupid, cold, daft, full of polar bears or anything else that will eat me, really. But yeah, there's just a lot of planning going on at the minute for everything to run hopefully smoothly in the year, Tim.
Brilliant. So anybody that doesn't know, Nigel is a mountaineer. Nigel's got a fantastic story to tell. A few days ago, well, maybe a couple of weeks in time, he was on Mount McKinley in whereabouts is that? Canada,
Alaska, Tim.
Alaska. Yeah, so America, and the weather turned on them, and they got stuck up a mountain and nearly died. But we'll leave that story for maybe another day. Mm-hmm. So, where are you planning on going, or is that not divulgeable just yet?
No. Well, so far this year, I've been to Scotland, Italy, and Austria. Oh, and Norfolk, the mountaineering capital of the United Kingdom, and the next plans are Norway. Oh no, Canada, then Norway, then Greenland again, then Italy. That'll get me to about September.
Oh, right.
After that, I'm still making plans. And they're a mixed bag, actually. Some are going to be sea kayaking, some was going to be mountaineering. Excuse me, got dust all over me. It's a mixed bag. There'll be some what's called Via Ferrata in Italy, which is really nice, climbing high in the mountains. And the rest, I'll just see what the year brings.
Yeah, have you done much skiing at all this year?
I was out in the Dolomites in February. Conditions were okay. My skiing was appalling. But then again, not many of us have managed to go for the last 2 years. It's been a tough old time. Have you been out yourself at all?
No, I've had to sort of put it on hold until I could get this hip sorted out. I've got a little bit of hip trouble at the moment. That I'm a statistic, basically. I'm on a waiting list, so I'm seeing a surgeon next week, and we'll see what we're going to do. Whether we're going to look at getting me on another list to replace it, or whether we're going to or what we're going to do. So that's next week.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's got to be done. Neither of us have had, shall we say, the most gentle of lives, Tim.
no, we can definitely, when we turn up at the pearly gates and say, "Oh, Pete, at least I've had a decent life and one of my own choosing, and I've got no regrets." And I think that's all we can do, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I should be happy for that. So
well, I'll just be happy to get my fingers and toes back.
Yeah. So that's a bit of a naughty one, that. Find it difficult to pick your nose.
Well,
mind you, you can scratch your bum, can't you?
Well, there's so many catalogues now. It's just great, really. It's funny. I do a lot of work in education these days. I spend a lot of time teaching Key Stage 2, and I really enjoy seeing the excitement that a child at that age can hold. We've all been teenagers, and we've all sort of stared at the ceiling and think this is all bloody ridiculous. But when you're 8, 9, and 10 years old, you still have a real light in your eyes, and you still have a desire to learn massive amounts. And I've been doing a lot of work with youngsters. I mean, they're fascinated about injuries anyway, generally, particularly things they can see or artificial limbs people have or whatever like that.
Yeah.
But to get a story into them and give them something positive to work with, rather than the world's an all horrible, nasty place and we're all going to get nuked. It's nice to, and I even come out energized. I can have 150 of them for a morning, and I come out with more energy than I went in with, because they just know how to get the best out of me.
Yeah. So kids are a bit like that, aren't they? So
well, as I say, the younger ones, we've all been teenagers, as I say, but they've just got such amount of energy and joy and excitement. It's great. It's great fun to work with them.
So, Greenland.
Yes.
What are you going to be doing in Greenland?
Well, the first plan is to sea kayak off eastern Greenland for a while with some Norwegian friends. So I'm told I'm going to learn Norwegian really quick. I have enough trouble with English, never mind anything else. But we're then going to quite literally just disappear off in sea kayaks for 8 or 9 days, just wild camp. And I'm told not only is the scenery quite beautiful, because you literally kayak between icebergs and flows, but the historical context, the remains from the Viking villages and such, is still there to this day and practically untouched.
Wow.
So that sounds a pretty exciting setup, followed by an evening drinking in Copenhagen with a load of Norwegians. And then I'm about 4 or 5 weeks later, I'm going back via Iceland, where we pick up a boat and we sail the Denmark Straits to Greenland. And we literally sail down the coast looking at a mountain or two and just say, we'll climb that one. And we'll go and climb it.
Is this a proper sailing boat, or is this a motorboat?
It's got a motor, but it's got sails, Tim. And up there ought to be plenty of wind. Whether I've got sea legs is another matter, but there's plenty of trucks for that kind of thing. But yeah, we literally sail. We'll probably sail across the straits and then motor into the fjords and inlets just to get us close in, and then literally just pick a peak and go. And we've got 2 weeks of doing that, and then living on the boat.
Brilliant. So how long's the trip planned for?
They're both about 10 days to 2 weeks each.
Yeah. So with the sailing trip, you might just end up sailing there and back with no time there.
Well, we'll see. They reckon you can cross the strait in about 2 to 3 days.
Hmm.
Obviously,
Yeah, give 'em
Greenlandic weather can be interesting. It's either absolutely stunningly beautiful, or
oh,
it's
it's
worse than the
horrendous.
worst backside of hell. But
Yeah.
you know what, Tim? We'll go and see.
Well, there's a YouTube channel, Eric Anderson, um, who
Yeah,
is a complete nutcase.
I like him
He lives
already.
in. You met him, have you?
No, but I like him already. If he's a nutcase, that's fine. I'll sit it
Yeah,
quite well.
he sails out of Haugesund
Hmm.
in Western Norway,
Hmm.
and his plan is to sail to Greenland
Hmm.
single-handed on
Right.
a Contessa 35, I think he's got,
Hmm.
and he's done a lot of work with this boat and got it ready, and it goes out in some atrocious conditions. You know, when he goes out in conditions that most people just batten down the hatches, stay at home.
Well, I went to see a friend of mine, Steve Venables, speak the other week, and Steve's very seasoned mountaineer, but he's been doing a lot of trips to South Georgia, and they sail from the Falklands or from the southern tip of South America. And some of the photographs and images he took, there's a chap out there as a very purpose-built aluminium hulled boat purely for this kind of trip, but it does look fairly hair-raising. He says you are perfectly safe, but I'm not a sailor. But some of the seas, you really do look like the cork bobbing on the top of a geyser. And the
Yeah.
amount of ice loading as well is quite dramatic. I've had snow loading on buildings where I've had to literally, we've had to dig the roofs out to make sure they don't collapse.
Mm,
And I know, of course, on boats you don't want too much on the deck, otherwise you're going to turn into a submarine.
yeah.
But some of the images sailing to South Georgia, yeah, they look absolutely stunning, but the sea looks awfully big and nasty.
Yeah, well, it's this time of year 40 years ago, the Falklands 40 anniversary this year,
Yeah.
and I interviewed a guy that was on HMS Glamorgan, and he said that the weather that they had down there at this time of the year was horrendous.
Mm.
Um, and I'd done the guy that was on Fearless, and I'd done the doctor that was on Atlantic Conveyor.
Hmm.
So that they've all got their own stories to tell. I've got a few more to do yet,
Hmm.
because we're laying on an exhibition for the Falklands 40 at the Explosive Museum here in Gosport.
All right.
So that should be quite a good thing. And then
Mm.
down at the yacht club, we're having uh, an anniversary dinner for the Falklands
Mm.
on the 2nd of July. So
Very
it'll be
nice. Very
a good
nice.
old
I mean, I was only
formal
what
dinner.
would I have been then? I was only 12 or 13 years old, and I remember watching it very intently on the television. Convinced that we were just going to, as we said in those days, let's go and get the Arges. And as a 12-year-old boy, it was this great excitement of the Navy is going to go.
Yeah,
Um, and then the horrors that came afterwards and have since come, and the stories that have been told. It's never a nice place to be. Fighting must be bad enough, but when the weather's horrific, I suppose the only upside is if you're in horrendous weather conditions, people don't tend to fly.
yeah.
But that doesn't make the rest of the world any easier.
No, definitely not. And say, I was in Northern Ireland during the Falklands War. We were up in Londonderry, and I can remember at the time. I mean, we were seeing it on the television, and the at the time the IRA were really active because they had the limelight taken away from them, doing what we were doing. So for us, it was as difficult for the guys down the Falklands, I guess.
Funnily enough, I've only just come back from Londonderry, bizarrely.
Oh
I'd
right,
never been. I'd never been. I've got some friends who live just down the way, and they said you must go to Londonderry and see the historic walls, and all the rest of it. And
Hmm.
again, there were names again when I was a boy that I used to see on the television, but you never put A to B if you haven't been there. You just hear of these towns, these
Yeah,
estates, these streets, and I don't suppose, like a lot of things, like mountains or maps, until you've actually been there, boots on the ground, as they say, until you've actually stood there, not a lot of it makes sense. You physically need to be in the situation and look around and take that geology in and geography in.
So did you go across to the city? Did you go and have a look around the Craigan and the Bogside?
Yeah. It was quite.
And Loch Foyle?
Yes, we went up
Strabane?
Loch Foyle, and there's the Freedom Bridge and all the rest of it. It was a particularly dull, horrible, rainy day, sadly. And again, from somebody completely
That's a
innocent.
normal day.
I'm going to say that's normal. From somebody who completely, only saw this as a child on the BBC television. I didn't understand the way that murals still play a big part in Northern Irish culture even now. And people would have certain paintings on the side of walls not to forget certain things. And I've got friends who are born and bred there, so they're explaining all this to me. And we go over the top of the hill, and in a lighter note, besides all the sort of quite political stuff, there's a mural of the Derry Girls, which at least lightened the mood, and it brought a bit more life back to the town, rather than this still, I think, quite divided, sadly, lost in their own time. City. I think some of them.
Yeah, it's a funny old thing. I mean, did several tours over the years, and nothing really changed, and I don't think it has to this day. They've I guess the terrorist activity has been redefined as criminal activity, so we could sort of the Northern Ireland peace process and all the rest of it. We could leave, but it's I don't think much has changed. I think there's still those elements there that want to return back to the bad old days, but it's what
very
it is,
sad.
unfortunately. Yeah,
it's very sad. I mean, I don't live far from Nottinghamshire, and we had the miners' strike again when I was probably a teenager. And all right, you can have your own views on that, and some people obviously didn't like Margaret Thatcher, some people didn't like Arthur Scargill, some were with the miners, some were not. But even now, 35 years on, people still don't talk to each other in the street.
Yeah,
or they've indoctrinated their own children not to talk to that person's children. And I just think it's really quite sad.
It's I mean, I can remember the miners' strike at the time and thinking, I mean, it's a lot of people blame Margaret Thatcher, but I think it was Arthur Scargill that really brought the miners down. The way that he just went about it. And
well, it didn't help, did it, that they wouldn't have a ballot?
Yeah, and he was so so hell bent on getting them all out, and I think had they'd stayed and talked through it, they may have had a better outcome. We may have still had some mining left in this country.
It's interesting because that I work in the electricity industry, and everybody is hell bent on getting rid of coal because of its fossil fuel capability. And yet the last few coal stations at the minute are doing their absolute fruit generating flat out to keep up with demand, on top of burning natural gas. So whether the coal industry would have survived, I get your point. They want rid of coal as a greenhouse commodity, full stop. But it still plays a small part in British generation. But I don't think there was any need. I'm not a man that thinks. I mean, don't get me wrong. I believe in peaceful protest for anything. As soon as people start fighting, you've lost the plot with it for me. That's it. Full stop.
Yeah. Well, talking about peaceful protest, I was out in a peaceful protest on Monday. Funny enough, there was a group called Million Veterans Marching. And we turned up at Trafalgar Square in London, and we marched on the Northern Ireland office.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, the Northern Ireland office is housed within the Treasury. So what we
Right.
did, we marched down Whitehall, and we dropped off groups at different doorways into the Treasury. And we closed the Treasury down for about 3.5 hours. Nobody in, nobody out.
Mm.
we, we got our message across.
Good.
And I did a few live streams during the day. But where I was round the back on Horse Guards Approach, and where the door we were on, just all the way, both sides of Horse Guards Approach, there was wall to wall police vans loaded up with loads and loads of police. And I said, surely they're not here for us. Turns out that they were after the stinking rebellion lot that were trying to block bridges and that sort of malarkey and glue themselves to things. And we showed them how to do it. Block it off, nobody in and out for a couple of hours. People get a bit frustrated, have words, get somebody out from the Northern Ireland office to speak to us to hear our grievances, and that was it. Done a deal with the police, and we scarpered.
Yeah.
All done and dusted. And that's the way to do a peaceful protest. I'm on another one tomorrow, funny enough. It's called Rolling Thunder and Operation Thunderbolt. Loads and loads of veterans on motorbikes are all descending on London tomorrow. The last time they did it was in, I think it was 2019. There was 22,000 motorbikes arrived in central London, and the mainstream media, not a word. So I don't suppose anybody heard about it other than the people that was actually on it.
Yeah.
But the press just didn't.
The thing is, at the minute as well, having worked with the media for many years, it's what's in the press at the time, isn't it? You've got Ukraine, obviously. You've got whatever's going on and whatever wine party they're throwing in 10 Downing Street or whatever they wish to be doing. You've got people then saying they're doing what you call the dead cat trick, which is throwing some useless news to fill up parliamentary time or deflect other people's accusations, issues, whatever it may be. And if there's big news breaking, and particularly if you were trying to do a press release or a big launch for anything the day the Russians cross the Ukrainian border, and it cost you £10 million in media equipment, nobody would listen.
Lost.
And it's a real tough one with the media, because sometimes you just don't know what's going to come through that door. God forbid a member of the royal family dies, or somebody bombs somebody, or something happens and it just floods the world media. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do, and where you've been, they ain't listening. And for the newsrooms at the moment, Ukraine, of course, is filling miles of time, column inches and such. But yeah, it's a toughie when you're trying to get a point across. And sometimes the media, of course, they control opinion. I mean, if they say we're not going to cover a subject, even though it's worth covering, they control opinion.
Yeah, and I think the news channels like Talk Radio and GB News are starting to change attitudes. They're starting to show the mainstream media that they are left-wing propaganda machines.
Well, the BBC, I don't think, has done itself that many favours during COVID. I mean, I don't know if you listen to Radio 4 Comedy. I do like the news quiz on the Now Show. And one of their lines this last week, a week or two back, was when the Russians invaded Ukraine, there was almost as many BBC correspondents in the country as there were Russian troops. And, we do need good quality reporting, and the BBC has a name across the world. Wherever I travel, people, BBC it's one of the biggest stations in the world and respected. But having watched the COVID reporting, it's been a horrible time for everybody. But I think there's been an awful lot of scaremongering and an awful lot of poor quality reporting and badgering. Lots and lots and lots of let's just continuously have a go at people when everybody's had a bad time. I'm not going to say anybody's come out of this better. Some people have made plenty of money out of it. Some people have lost a lot of money out of it. Some people have built businesses, other people have lost them. You know, I've lost my mum through it, although it wasn't COVID. And, you know, we all have tough times. There is no need to be at each other's throats 24 hours a day, because there must be something otherwise to talk about. We occasionally need some good news as well as, obviously, we get the bad.
Yeah. But I mean, this last couple of years has really, really put a proper struggle on people. And I think it's going to take a long time to recover. I mean, just financially, has put a massive strain on the public purse.
Mm.
The other thing,
and you know, and lots of other people's purses. I mean, I've born and bred in the town I'm in Derbyshire, and some businesses have done remarkably well. They haven't profiteered out of COVID. What they've done is they've adapted, and they've adapted very successfully. Particularly some of the local shops. There's a grocer, there's a local butcher's. Even the local flower shop has done fabulously, but that's because they've adapted to the situation. And they've worked with it. They've worked incredibly hard, but they also tend to be small family-run businesses that have the ability to change very quickly.
I think that's something that's born out of this whole fiasco over the last couple of years, that people have had to adapt, and without wanting to sort of go too deep into it. I mean, just take the government at the moment. They borrowed I think it's about £2 trillion that they borrowed to pay for the pandemic. What the Chancellor announced the other day for the budget is going to cripple people, with energy prices going up because of what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. The Russians are now threatening to turn off the gas taps into Europe, and I think that's going to stuff the Germans a bit. But the Germans haven't helped themselves at all in this whole thing. They kind of sided with the Russians for one. I mean, it's just beggars belief what they are doing. Anyway. Just going to put a quick message out. If people would like to click the like button, put a comment in the chat box. If you've got a question for either Nigel or myself, pop it in the chat box, and we'll do our best to answer the questions. Just like to say a big hi to Sylvia that's listening in. We've got a few more guests coming up this evening, so please join in, click the like box, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. Don't forget to share it. It doesn't cost anything at all to subscribe to the channel. Just put that out there now. It's free to subscribe. So, questions, pop them in the chat box, and we'll do our best to answer them. If we can't answer them, we'll go away and we'll find the answer, and we may come back and let you know it. That's a textbook answer, isn't it?
There you go. You'll be in politics before you know it, Tim.
Oh, well, maybe not. Talking of politics, I've got a politician next week. I'm interviewing for a podcast.
Okay, yeah. Anybody we know?
So, you remember years ago a program called Heale?
I do indeed. Yes.
Red Dinage.
Good grief, yes.
Well, I'm doing his daughter.
There you go. Yeah, I used to like how it was never the same when they remade it afterwards, though. It's only the original.
No, the original with who was it? Jack Halgreaves, Fred Dinage, and who's the other one on there?
You need to do some frantic searching on Google now to find out. There you go. Yeah.
If anybody knows who was the other person,
Yeah, stick it in.
Put the answer in the chat box. So,
yeah, there you go. Answer the questions for us.
So, yeah, I'm having a chat with Dame Caroline Dinage, MP.
Ooh, look at you.
Yeah. You know, I've been so busy with recording podcasts the last, well, since January, really. I got onto this new thing called Podmatch. And it because I'm a guest and a host, but mainly a host, I've recorded 40 episodes, and that's like this video and audio. So they're going out as podcasts on all the popular podcast platforms. So that's something you could do before you go away. Download somebody, and if you're struggling to get to sleep, have a listen to particularly the first 24, which is me. that cures insomnia to anybody. But I've done some really fascinating people, and I'm up to 75.
Great.
75 people I've interviewed. I've got 21 scheduled, and I've got another 8 waiting to schedule. So, and they keep coming. They just keep coming. Oh, stop!
What's all about?
Yeah, I've got 2 a week going out at the moment. So if anybody'd like to listen in, they're on YouTube, and they're also on all the popular podcast apps. Or you can go to my website, which is the Buzzsprout website, and all the episodes are on there as well.
Good stuff.
Just give it a bit of a plug. So, where are we going? I don't know whether Becca's ready to come in or not. So she'll give us a shout when she's ready, I think. Oh, we've been doing well. We're half an hour in already.
There you go. You see, it soon passes.
Yeah, it flashes by. Let's just put a sting on, shall we?
The Tim Heale Podcasts. Ordinary people's extraordinary stories.
Oh, I love that sound. Here's the other one.
The Tim Heale Thirsty Thursday live stream from 7 until 9 weekly. Here's your host, Tim Heale.
That's me. So we've what do you reckon to the layout? Do you like the layout we've got here?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. I mean, we were talking about backgrounds earlier because there was this great thing when we started all of the video chats and interviews at the start of the COVID pandemic of what people had on their bookshelves, and you could actually buy books en masse almost by title to make it look as if you're intelligent or scientific or medical. And there was even a Twitter feed of the books behind people's heads when they were doing this thing to see who'd got the most interesting titles. The very famous case, of course, on the BBC of a certain lady having a certain implement on top of a shelf that we'll not go into publicly, but I'm sure the batteries have worn out by now. And I mean, this just is a bookshelf of mine. This really is a bookshelf, and it's got polar bears and things and all the rest of it on there because I'm a bit of a bookworm. But of course, I have a pull down. I'm not going to do it from here, but I have actually a pull down blind. I'm not a massive. I'm not a massive sort of lover of virtual backgrounds. I like sort of, I've got a blind of a big picture of Iceland that comes down, or you just get to read my accounts. They're all here, or you get OS maps. They're all down there. It's been an interesting exploration because what we've all suddenly done is looked in everybody else's house.
Yeah, and
never did that. Nobody came in your house. My grandmother's
Oh.
and my mother would not have anybody in their house to go and have a look round. Good grief. Now, hello, here we are.
Yeah. Well, I think Becky's ready to come into the room.
Here she is.
Here she is.
I'll give
Hiya,
you a
Becky.
quick tour. I'll give you
Here
a
we
quick
go.
tour. Here we go. What's our backgrounds? I don't know if you can see
Hey.
this. Can you see that?
I
Yeah.
can see some pictures. Nice
That's
picture
like
rail. I
that.
like picture rails. I like picture rails.
That's the lighthouses of the English Channel.
Oh.
Oh,
Dresser, Somerset stuff on the dresser because that's where I'm from. The classic plates and whatnot. And then this one will make you smile here. Maybe you can see it. You see that picture?
sheep and penguins.
Sheep and penguins.
That is in the Falklands.
Well, absolutely. Where else would you get them?
Because in 2008 or 2009, I took a 21-meter sailing boat from the Falklands to South Georgia.
And there you go.
With the army.
Fantastic.
So there you go. I haven't got any pictures of my trip to Greenland on the wall. Maybe I ought to fix that. I did Greenland as well.
Do you find though, Becky? Do you find that I don't know. I don't put pictures up of my travels. I've been all over the world and taken tens of thousands of photographs, and I cannot bear to have them on my own walls.
I've run out of space.
Talking about virtual, have a look around my little studio. Here we go. This is the live streaming studio that we're on. So I've got.
Where did you find green curtains like that? They are horrendous.
Yeah, I know.
That's not very nice.
There's the one behind me. There's the. What do you think to the new hat?
Very nice.
Check out the new hat for the show.
Yeah.
So, and then we go around a bit more, and there's the door. So I've got everything hanging up on the walls. Got uniforms, old uniforms, and they're there mainly not only just for display, but they're also there to deaden the noise, to stop the echo.
Yes, a very important trick. Yes.
And I've got me uplighters that give us some great lighting in the room. And
He's really got into this, isn't he?
Oh yeah, I could almost be a professional.
I think the thing is, Becky, he's not getting out very often. I think that's what it is, and he's a very happy boy. He's a very happy boy.
I'm not making any comments, but he's doing a fantastic job, and I must make a mental note to listen to some of the stuff on the Falklands, which is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, they're coming out fairly soon. For the Falklands 40, so we're putting on this exhibition at the Explosive Museum. They're giving us a room there. We've got the guys doing some research. They've got loads of pictures they're putting up, people's stories, and I've got some.
You're doing that with
video
the historic dockyard. You're doing that with the historic dockyard. Yeah.
Yeah, they're on board as well. We've got the is it Naval Dockyard Property Trust that are on side.
Property Trust. Yeah.
Yeah, they're really good guys there. Patrick and Kerry. They've been helping us out a lot. And then we've also with the archives, they're going to be doing some tours for us around behind the scenes for History Week. So we've got History Week in Portsmouth and Gosport the first week of August, 1st to the 7th of August. And we're laying on quite a few tours of different places, some behind the scenes stuff, and some stuff that you don't normally get to see as a punter. So that's what we're at.
That'd be good. That'd be really interesting.
Yeah. So we're quite looking forward to that. So doing a lot of work for that, and so I've recorded a few stories and presentations to put up during that week. So it's
I think there's an official hashtag. It's either 40 Falklands or Falklands 40. I can't remember it. I've seen it somewhere that the Navy are trying to get everybody to use. So if you are doing it on social media, then remind me and I'll dig it out for you to try and get some greater traction.
Yeah. And
Falklands 40. I'm looking at it now.
Okay, it's Falklands 40.
Falklands 40. Yeah.
So down at the yacht club on the 2nd of July, we're having we normally have a Waterloo dinner, but this year we're doing Falklands 40 anniversary dinner. So that'll be
Very good.
to commemorate the events or celebrate, whichever you're looking at it. We've got quite a few Falklands vets within the club that will be there.
I actually met a few guys when I was working more on cruise ships. I came down to Southampton to Cunard or Carnival Group, as I think it is now, as head office.
Yeah.
And they were looking for speakers, of which I ended up being one. But there was a couple of guys who had been on the Cunard liners that went down when they sort of requisitioned them, and they were obviously using the link of liners and combat and the Falklands to bring the story together. And there was some real interesting tales to tell. There really were, that you wouldn't hear. I don't think you'd hear very easily until you'd actually been with somebody who was actually there on the day.
Yeah. So
Some
I
good stuff on
interviewed
BBC Sounds as well.
Yeah. I
Listen to
interviewed the
that in a bit.
doctor that was on Atlantic Conveyor, and he's quite a story that he tells, and we've got that as a presentation. So he's got he's doing a voiceover to this presentation, and that's one of the things we're doing. I spoke with a guy that was on HMS Excellence, not Excellence. What was the other one? I've done so much that my mind's getting clogged up with it all. Not Excellence. Oh, it's gone.
You want to try and get hold of, do you know Gary Law or Dennis Law? Dennis Law. He was Victoria manager at Joint Service Sailing.
All right,
And
yeah,
he
no,
was
Gary.
on. Yeah, he was on
Dennis.
one of the ships that got. Yeah, he was on one of the ships that got torpedoed in the war down there. He tells a good story of it. Literally, he'd be a good person to get hold of.
Yeah, I think Dennis has left now, hasn't he? Long time ago.
No, he's left, but he's left, but he's in Hornding. He's not far. He's still in the neighbourhood.
Right. I'll try and track him down then.
Yeah,
yes, I'm still looking for a few Falklands vets to tell their stories. It's difficult. Some of them that it's still pretty raw, and they find it difficult to talk about. So,
understandably.
We'll see. We still haven't put anybody put anything in the chat box. So, if somebody could put a comment in the chat box and let us know that it's working. I hope it's working. It worked last week.
It's quite difficult to get to, Tim.
All right, it's at the bottom, isn't it?
Yeah, it's at the bottom.
Try that.
Is it work? It is working because I can.
There you go then.
Why can't I see it then? It's not working for me.
It's interesting you say though about talking about such things, because with the Falklands being 40, when I was 16, the Second World War was 40. And I remember speaking to my grandfather, who was a Burma veteran, who even then really didn't want to bring the subject up, didn't want to converse about it at all. He told me certain things, but 40 years is a long time. But when you've been through hell and back, it perhaps only seems like yesterday.
Yeah.
And perhaps now, I'm not going to say we understand PTSD now. We certainly didn't after the Second World War, I don't think. And whether we did in the 80s, I don't know. But he struggled with it the rest of his life, and with malaria too. So he had a rough old time with all that. And if you've still got outstanding mental and physical injuries, they're just never going to go away. They'll follow you the rest of your life.
I think I was going to say, I think the sad but good thing that does come out of war or a conflict is a greater understanding of the medical profession, and a lot of advances have been made in medical treatment of people being got by an IUD, certainly in the Iran-Iraq sort of era. Huge gains in blood clotting and stuff happening on the ground that is now mainstream NHS. And I think, as you say, that we as a country or a human race have a greater understanding of the mental impact. And I think the good news now is certainly in the forces, people get signposted a lot earlier if they've got proper medical care than even 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And I think it's and of course with COVID, again, more medical advances, but I think there's a greater understanding that mental health is okay to talk about, which has got to be a good thing. But it's tough. We all have toughness, but it makes you stronger at the end of the day.
Yeah, I go to a group occasionally here in Gosport of veterans that are doing their own self-help. They've all got, quite a few of them have got complex PTSD, mental health issues, and it's like they self-help themselves. They set up a what do they call it, a LinkedIn. They look after each other. They have a check-in 2 or 3 times a week. They meet up once a week, and then during the week they'll ping each other and make sure that they're still okay. And at this group, they open up and talk about how they've been that particular week, whether they've had a tough time, whether things are going okay with them. But yeah, it's quite a gritty conversation to have. Just got to put a quick message out. Frank, can you just do us a quick favour? Can you put a message in the chat box? Say hello or something. Oh, thanks for the like, by the way. And Sylvia. So you just say hello in the chat box. That would be great. So where are we? We're still trying to get people to click the like button, subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe to the channel. You know how it works. Put comments in the chat box. Share it with your friends. and the hard bit is getting people on to the show. It's a great little platform. I think it's a great show. We talk about all sorts of things. We did a sailing special or a boating special the other week, and that was quite good fun. We had quite a few chaps in on that one and having a chat. Maybe it's because it's the bank holiday weekend that we haven't got anybody jumping in. Oh, but I bet you're working all weekend, aren't you, Becky?
No, I'm not. No, I've decided I don't need to work. The boss is happy with that, and Portsmouth Volunteer Harbour Patrol will be out, so I'm going to leave it to them and probably have a bit of time on the boat tomorrow, and then go back to Somerset, see the family, and enjoy a roast lamb, and see the 13.5-year-old border collie. So it's not a huge amount of wind forecast for the next couple of days. It's just this sort of fairly slack high pressure sitting over the top of us, and there was thick pea soup in the harbour here till about 10:30, 11 today. Yeah, really, really thick, and it was forecast, but not to stay that long, and it moved a bit, then it came back, and then you could see this and you could see that, and then they tell me there's mist tomorrow, but it shouldn't be fog, but I'm not going to hold my breath. But sadly, when I come back on the ferry at 3:30, 4 o'clock, looked out south down through the harbour entrance, Harry flatters, as in no waves, but a big line of pollution, a big brown line of pollution.
Oh,
there hasn't been any wind to disperse it. Yeah, it's really sad, just above the sea level, and it's the colour of this dresser behind me with all the commercial traffic that goes in and out, not helped by a warship steaming up through the middle of it, but HMS Kent was on her way in with a couple of tugs. But it's just, I thought, I don't need to be part of that. I don't need to drive around a Solent for 3 days on the boat, going slowly. I'd rather I might go for a little sail tomorrow and see how it looks, and then come back in. I've got a solar cell on the boat, so I'm not totally reliant on diesel power to create some electricity. So I feel like I'm doing my bit somewhat, but and hopefully tomorrow night it won't be cold enough to have the diesel heater running. She says. But no, it was. I just felt it was a bit of a shame, really. But we don't know how busy it'll be. I think the weather's a bit up and down. It depends where you are. I think tomorrow's a better day. Bit cloudy. It could be anything. So we decided that I didn't need to work, which suits me.
Happy days. Get a weekend off.
Happy
I bet that's
days.
a rarity, isn't it?
4 days off.
4 day weekend.
4 days.
Good grief.
Yeah. So I was hoping originally I was going to take this week off, and then I sat down and worked my leave out 2 weeks ago, and it's like, oh, I've got any leave left. And look, at this time of year, everybody's trying to use their leave. So next week, I said to the boss, "Oh, can I work from home on Tuesday?" He said, "You know the answer. You're the only one in." Because he's got to work remotely for a couple of reasons. So I said, "Oh, okay, I'll come in then." But my mother was like, "Oh, are you going to look after the dog for 2 or 3 days because they're going away?" And I'm like, "I can't take the dog to work. He's not allowed in the dog yard." So yeah, he'll have to stay behind with my brother. But yeah, so no doubt it'll be busy, no doubt. But it's good to be busy rather than quiet. There's always lots going on.
Absolutely. I think the where you got fair weather like this weekend, there'll be droves and droves of people just heading down to the coast, just for a long weekend staycation.
I drove down Leon Solent seafront probably 2 weeks ago on the Saturday or Sunday. I can't remember what day it was. And the queues outside the ice cream shop, and there was hundreds of people sat in chairs. And I'm like, I'm in all this gear. It's not warm. And they're all like, it's like when you go to Iceland. I'm sure when you go to Iceland, if you've been to Iceland, they love their ice cream. They are right on the edge of the Arctic Circle on midsummer, or when I was last up there, I think it was sort of June. And we're all stood outside this ice cream shop in our queue for ice cream, and it's an amazing ice cream parlor, just like Americans. And they're there with
just going to take
you have your ice cream, and they dip it in chocolate, and then they dip it in marshmallows, and they dip it in hundreds and thousands, and then they let it cool down, and they dip it again, they dip it again, they dip it again. So yeah. Where are you joining the boat in Iceland? Are you joining it in Reykjavik, or are you joining it somewhere else?
Up near Isafjorda, up in the northwest.
Isafjorda. Okay, yeah, it's nice up there. That's where that ice cream shop is.
Is it? And I've been briefly a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I have been up that far. Usually we go the other side over to Okiri, and then we fly over the Greenland ice cap. But this time we're going up to near Isafjorda anyway, picking the boat up there, and then heading north from that point.
What time are you going? What month are you going?
August.
Oh yeah, you should be all right by then. The ice should have cleared. But,
I damn well hope
yeah,
so.
the ice...
We're not playing any Titanic games while I'm out there. We are not doing any ice battering in little boats.
No, of course, Greenland's owned by Denmark, and the Danish Weather Service do a fantastic. You've probably seen them set of ice charts.
Yeah.
And they fly over the top every 2 or 3 days and make charts and satellite pictures. It's just phenomenal. And you can have a good look at what's going on.
I've ski raced on Greenland and 1 or 2 other bits up there, and the weather forecasting just generally and the support from Denmark's always been excellent.
Yeah, it's very good.
They really do go for it up there. Norway's very similar. When I've been in the mountains of Norway, the forecasting it sometimes puts us to shame, to be honest. They're really very, very, very on the game, and they need to be. This is the kind of place where it really does become dangerous.
I think there's a Clipper is sending a couple of boats up to Greenland and Iceland, and I think Joint Service Sailing are sending one this year as well. So you might have a bit of traffic and other people doing not necessarily what you're doing by mountaineering and canoeing and what have you, but you might see a few other vessels because people have realised it's relatively easy to get to. You can get there and back in a fortnight, which is make it from England, which is quite nice. Oh, Tim's back.
There he is, and you don't have to wear a big horned helmet and row a lot. You can sail over.
Or is it not like that? I can't remember which one.
Well, apparently they never wore horns on their helmets anyway. It's a complete fallacy, and Hagar the Horrible really wasn't true. But
the Norwegians or the Icelandics?
The Vikings, full stop. But I mean, I've always enjoyed time in Greenland. I've had some fantastic times up there. I've been in some really nasty storms, and I've been in some absolutely stunning weather as well. I did have an appendicitis on the ice cap once. I don't recommend that, but just generally, it's a fabulous, lovely, empty place still. I mean, it's the most COVID secure environment I can find because there is nobody else there. I live on the edge of the Peak District, and perhaps a bit like you guys, bank holiday weekend is not a time to go out. I will be in my
It is what it is.
I'll let them all pile into Bakewell and Castleton and argue over ice cream shops. I shall tinker. I love tinkering in my garden. I shall have a nice tinkering weekend.
Hope the weather's kind to you.
It looks reasonable. Tim's on mute. What a wonderful thing. Can we get that fitted as standard?
I muted it on the desk because what I found, if I drop me down, occasionally it mutes everybody. But it didn't this time, so it was working fine.
All right.
Okay. So I'm back in the game. Sorry about that.
There he is.
I had to answer a call from another guest that he couldn't find the link, so he's fannying about trying to get in now. That's my old mate Harry.
Need to sort it. Your mate Harry needs to sort his admin out, yeah.
Oh yeah, he's a terrible admin. Always has been.
Is it badmin or just admin or shadmin?
I think it's badmin actually.
It's just admin, is it? Admin generic.
I've got to admit, Tim, that makes me remember a lot of ski trips to Austria, where I was put in a room with quite a senior officer whose admin was absolutely appalling, and the one civilian on the trip had to sort his bloody life out for him. It was terrible.
Yeah.
Couldn't even plug his phone in to charge it. I mean, they were hopeless.
I know. How they ever manage troops is beyond me. It's having good sergeants in charge. That's what does it.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I'll leave that one with you.
Got it.
So I was, I toyed with the idea of going this year, but my hip's been playing up. I just couldn't handle it. Unfortunately, I was quite looking forward to sort of trying to put on a set of planks, but I'll wait and see what they say next week. Are you ready to come in, Harry? He sat there. Hang on, let's bring him in. Yeah, there you go. You're in the room now, Harry. So we've got
hello everybody.
And Becky tonight.
Evening, Harry.
Hi, Harry.
So Harry and I go back a long way. We were in anti-tank
Caesar was rank, and Centurion was a rank, not a tank.
That's it.
That's it. Oh, yeah. Sorry, it was my grandson's first birthday.
Oh no!
He's round. Pardon?
He's still up, is he?
Yeah, he's just come round and brought some cakes round, and we're just saying happy birthday to him and said hello.
That's
still wide awake, is it? Yes. Yeah, afraid so. Oh dear. Anyway, what we talking about tonight?
Oh, we've talked about all sorts. We're talking about expeditions mainly. So Nigel is a notoriated expeditioner.
All right.
A mountaineer.
A mountaineer.
A mountaineer, yeah.
I look at mountains.
I just get lost on them. I just like to go and get lost and then reported missing and cause havoc. It's much more fun than just turning up and having a bit of a wander and coming home. I mean, where's the excitement in it? It's terrible.
Yeah. That's it. Getting the helicopter flying out to pick you up. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Why would I want to walk down? Send for a manservant. Just take me a helicopter.
Oh, don't blame you. Sounds like a good idea.
I think it's probably harder coming down than it is going up.
Yeah, skis going downhill are lovely. Boots and crampons going downhill are an absolute pain.
Yeah.
But it depends on the route as well, Tim, and where you are, the peak, and also the complete lack of paths. You know, we watch TV documentaries. A great many of them are hoaxes, as far as I'm concerned, because they say they're alone on the mountain with 18 camera crew, 26 pack animals, a drone team, and pumping music that's dubbed on. And it's like, look at this really remote place I am. Half the bloody world stood in front of you with their solar panels and their generators. And I'll go with a mate, and we'll be like, right, we'll see you in 6 weeks, all right, and we're going to have a good time.
Brilliant.
A few cans of food in the background.
My brother ended up being on one of the island with Bear Grylls, one of the, I don't know, whatever they were, guests, contestant, whatever it was, and he was really disappointed because he's a farmer. So before they went, they came round and they filmed my old man, who didn't really want to be filmed. They filmed my mother, they filmed the dog, they filmed feeding the cattle and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, they got out there and he had to go in what he was standing up, and they all went off in this boat and they were dumped on an island, Island of the Perlas in the Gulf of Mexico, west side of the Gulf of Mexico. And they were told all the time they had to wear a thing around their neck. And it was basically a 406 beacon, an emergency beacon. And if anything happened, it was fine because the island that was just over there, in other words, 10 minutes in a boat, but all the filming was done without seeing the lights. And the guy that was cameraing it was not allowed to show the lights in the background because in theory they were miles from anywhere. The one time that they really needed a doctor and they pressed the button, it took them 3 hours to get there. and he was like, this whole thing, he was really worried about how he was going to be portrayed. And he was very disappointed with the amount of rubbish there was on the beach, and they ended up building a raft and what have you. Anyway, one day, a black boar appeared, a wild boar appeared on this island. And they're all running around trying to catch this thing because they haven't had a proper meal in whatever days it is, and they've eaten the cockles and the winkles off the seaweed and all this sort of stuff. And they're there trying to catch this boar. Anyway, my brother, being the farmer, goes, "Come over here." So they capture it, and it's just, this isn't wild. There's a hole in here for its ear tag. And it was
so they dumped
like,
it on the island.
They dumped it on the island, and it brought salmonella as well.
Oh my!
So when he come back, he had salmonella. The whole thing was a complete and utter farce. And there was, for argument's sake, 26 they started off with, and they rearranged the story and sent people home, and it wasn't what happened. As you say, it wasn't anywhere in the sticks. It was all within mobile phone range. It was all just a complete farce. He didn't get paid for it, but it was once in a lifetime. He lost about 3 stone. I think that's he's put it back on since. But he's glad he did it. He's glad he did it. But the whole thing was so badly managed. And of course, it's reality TV, and with the pandemic, they ran out of things to talk about, didn't they? So yeah.
Well, that's why they invented the Masked Singer. I mean, you know. But I mean, I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here. We're going to lock you in a castle in Wales. Good, stay there. It's just people have this unbelievable hankering for reality television when reality happens to be an inch in front of your nose.
But they don't get that.
Well, that's it. It's like Big Brother.
They stay at home.
I thought Big Brother was interesting for perhaps the first 1 or 2 series. A bit like the one where they marooned him on a Scottish island about 10 or 15 years ago. I can't think what that was called now. It's where Ben Fogle came out of.
Heresy.
Yeah, I got that as an experiment, 1 or 2 of them. But when you're on series 26, I think you've lost the plot.
It's cheap TV.
And if you're still watching it, you've obviously died of boredom.
Yeah.
It's cheap
It's like that SAS.
And then you have Gogglebox, people filming, people
watching television. I don't watch it.
Like, anybody recommend anything to watch on TV at the moment? I watch what, an hour a day if I'm lucky. Fall asleep.
Lucky or
It's just
unlucky,
nothing
it
to
depends how
watch.
you look at that.
Well, we don't pay a license fee, so we don't watch any of it.
I'm beginning to wonder if you've got it right there. Just watch it on YouTube.
YouTube,
or,
we've got so much on it. I mean, look at this. We've got this channel on YouTube to start with.
Can you
can
watch
tune
for
in once a
iPlayer?
week for this.
Can you watch iPlayer, Tim?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. No.
I
iPlayer.
can't watch
No,
iPlayer.
I spend a lot of time on YouTube, but I spend a lot of time creating content. And a lot of time talking to people. So I'm up to 75 people now.
That's brilliant.
I've got
keep
one
Coming
to
to
do after this.
QHM.
Oh, dear.
I just spend a lot of time outside. It's cheaper, and the sunlight's much nicer.
Yeah.
And it has forecast. I mean, no wind up here. For you sailors, that's not so good. I appreciate that, but it's meant to be very pleasant and quite sunny up here. And yeah, I'll be outside doing something and pottering around. I might get out on the push bike. We'll see. But the rest of the time, I'll be outside, and I'll be saving the world's energy crisis by not burning any electricity and incurring about £50 a unit to do so.
Oh, it's crazy, isn't it?
How are you on wind farms? On land?
I don't mind wind farms. I do have an issue with this idea that we need more onshore. Personally, from the yield I see from wind farms, we're better offshore with big arrays. So I'm up in Derbyshire, but in Lincolnshire we've got very large arrays off the coast there, off North Norfolk, off the Mersey.
Yeah.
In fact, I think the world's biggest wind farm is somewhere off North Yorkshire. I get that, and I get the fact of having very, very, very big turbines offshore. Yes, you've got to sail up and down to maintain them, and the weather can be, whatever out there. But the wind's more stable, and people complain less about them. As in, you built 10 on top of the hill, and they look awful. We've had everything from RSPB saying they chop birds up to people saying the noise keeps them awake at night. The list goes on. But you've got to do something.
Yeah.
You want to put the lights on, you've got to pay a price.
No choice. Somewhere. Yeah, we've got no choice. We need the energy because we are an energy-driven society. What we're using is energy. Yeah. Without electric, we wouldn't be able to do this. So
absolutely.
Well, I've got solar panels. I know it's dark time, but I'm putting back into the grid, especially on a day like today.
Well, I've got solar panels as well. I've got 16 panels. We generate 4 watts of electricity a day. The only time it doesn't generate is when it's very, very misty. In light cloud, it's still generating at least 3 watts. So, and in bright sunshine.
And again, I believe in large-scale solar arrays because they work very effectively as well.
Work well. Yeah.
I get the point of building them on old airfields. I get the point of building them on scrap, but we shouldn't be covering arable land with them. We shouldn't be covering areas where actually that ground has a value that is much higher than electricity generation. But there's lots of subsidies out there, some good, some bad. And I've got panels on the roof here. I can do about 2.5 kilowatts on my house. Why we're not building every modern house now with a solar roof, I don't know. It all has an effect, and we all want to charge our cars as will come and power our internets. And God forbid, if the lights go off, nobody will possibly survive without a router. And anybody under 40 will die when 5G gets switched off. But it's a power hungry society we live in. You've got to pay a price somewhere.
Yes, well, we've got to get away from fossil fuels because eventually they are going to run out, and we've got to find some way of surviving without them. And wind, water, and solar are the only other options, really.
I get your
Gotta
point.
find out.
Having worked in the market for a long time, it does help us to have something that we can turn on and off very quick. So gas works in that, but we do
Yes.
generate a lot of electricity from gas at the moment. You've only got to look at hydro doesn't work in the way you might think. It's useful, but how many big mountains have we got in Britain?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to dam the Severn.
Well,
the
my suggestion,
the ecologists fight the environmentalists on that one.
Well, years ago there was a program on BBC Radio 2, and they was asking about it, and I said, well, we ought to dam up the entire Wales entirely. They could supply us with hydroelectricity and all our water, so we'd never run out of water. Didn't go down too well, apparently.
Hydro's useful. I was at a place called Cruachan up near where is it? Oban. I was thinking of bottles of whiskey for a moment. Up near Oban, and you know, I think just after the war, they made this immense underground chamber where the turbines are, and have a lake basically up the mountain. I think it's 600 feet, 600 feet above them. And so you can open the turbines and we get energy very, very quickly. It's very effective. And they can do something called black start. I won't get into too much detail, but they can officially boot from zero.
Yeah.
But only for so long, unless it's raining awfully hard out there. And then they can pump water back up if needed, a bit like Denor.
Yeah, well, they reverse it overnight to pump the water back in, don't they?
But where's that energy coming from?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they're using electricity to pump it back in. Yeah.
Mm. And there are some protesters at the moment trying to make the grid stutter and stall. I don't know if you've heard about this.
Yes.
As a protest for fuel prices, what they're trying to do is to get people to switch everything off at a preset time and then switch everything, and I mean everything, including showers, cooker, hair dryers, the lot, and trying to make the national grid come out of synchronous and trip, which all sounds very funny. If it happens, it will take people like me up to 3 days to get your electricity back on.
Yes, I know. I've heard of this.
This is not a joke.
Yes, it's at peak time. They want everybody to switch off everything for 10 minutes and then switch it all, everything, as you say, whatever you can lay hands on to switch on, switch it on, and that will cause the power grid to go through the roof and they won't be able to recover from it.
We can recover, but it takes 2 to 3 days, quite literally.
Yeah.
And
it takes a while
then
you've
got to think of the capability of emergency services, hospitals, banking, internet, society. You'll not have any money.
No, you won't be able to use the whole wall
anyway.
and nobody will be able to complain about it because there'll be no internet.
Hey, Tim, you've got a bloody index-linked pension, so shut up. You've got no money.
But it's a very serious
doesn't
issue.
Go up the same rate as everything else.
It should do this year.
It's a serious issue in the fact that people want energy generation, and people want the ability to live their lives as they choose. I mean, yes, let's not be unfair here. Energy prices have gone through the ceiling. There's no two ways about it. But that's a pain everybody's having to suffer.
Yeah, but the energy companies in their own right are making a lot of profit out of this.
Well,
where they could
slash
their profit a bit.
Welcome to a market that's sold into private enterprise.
Correct. I totally agree with you there. Should never have been sold into private enterprise.
Can we not talk politics? You're doing that next week with Caroline Dinage.
All right.
Well, bring the subject matter up, Tim. There you go. You can talk about that then.
Yeah, go
on. Afghanistan. That's dropped right off the radar because of what's going on in Ukraine. A lot of the aid that was going to Afghanistan to help out there has been diverted to the Ukraine at the moment. And I mean, there's lots and lots of points I'd like to sort of just chuck in there at the moment. There's around about 25 million Afghans that are suffering at the moment because of the not just at the hands of the Taliban, but because the infrastructure of the country is on its knees, basically.
Well, basically, the Taliban destroyed that. I mean, the Taliban took over, and basically all the infrastructure that was already there and all the people who were being paid, they basically got rid of them, sent them home. Because a lot of them were women, so they won't let them have jobs.
Yeah. I mean, they have managed to maintain. There is power in the country. There is internet. There is phones in the country. They've managed to keep that going. The banking system, they will only allow people to take out a certain amount of money at any one time. They are actively going around seeking out people that worked for foreign countries, international community, and they're slotting them. They're taking them out. They're hanging them in marketplaces, and they are doing this on a daily basis out there at the moment. And I've had that firsthand from guys that were there. Fortunately, I had some really good news this last week or so. The guys that I've been trying to assist to get out that worked for me when I was there have now managed to escape. They are now they're now in the hands of the Arab team, the Afghan relocation and assistance teams. So they're being looked after, and they will be here when they get here.
The Ministry of Defence has still got a huge team of people processing them. Huge team of people.
Oh yeah.
It's the media, wherever it is.
This is where the media comes in. No, it's no longer a story to them. So
this is what we were discussing earlier. It's old news, isn't it?
Yeah, it's old news. So let's forget about that and we'll move on to something else.
And some other
humanitarian crisis. Yeah, it's everything revolves on a soundbite nowadays, and nothing else.
But what's amazing is how, for all that we know, this conversation could be being viewed in Afghan or another part of the world.
I hope so.
Probably is. Unpopular.
But it's really weird, it's recorded, and we can play it back. 10 years ago, would that have been normal? 20 years ago, definitely not. But
well, that's it. The internet is
reliant on telecommunications and ultimately electricity. And do you remember a few years ago, there's the wind-up radios?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
I gave away thousands of them.
Yeah,
thousands. Container loads we gave away in Afghanistan. Yellow ones. They
still got them out there working.
Yeah. They know how to make things work, that's for sure. So, I mean, Afghans, the average Afghan are really hospitable people. They're friendly, and it's true. I mean, they've never been conquered. Even back to Alexander the Great, he never managed it either. And we've had
everybody's tried over the years.
Yeah,
I say everybody's tried over the years, and nobody has succeeded.
Russia's got a bloody nose there, didn't they?
Didn't they? They got big, but they was doing the same over there as what they're doing in bloody Ukraine.
Yeah,
they just went and bombed everything.
I think they went in there with intentions to start with because they were invited in by the Shah at the time, and the Shah.
Yeah.
You look at old clips back from the sort of the 50s, 60s. Kabul, particularly, was a cosmopolitan city.
Yeah.
There was
some amazing footage that came out of that, wasn't there?
And the Shah was dragging him into the 21st century, and the Russians came in and started building some infrastructure. And that, and the mistake that they made is that they tried to control the country.
Yes. Well, that's what Russia does. They want it reverted to communism. Communism only works for the elite.
Yeah.
They just milk the money off, which they've always done, and all the rich people get richer, and the workers just get shoved in the corner to work, and that's it. That's all they're there for.
So,
Putin's as bad. He just feeds everybody on shit and keeps them in the dark.
Yeah, and the stuff that's coming out of Russia at the moment, you in the early days of the invasion, you saw snippets of news that was coming out where people were demonstrating against it. They got shut down very, very quickly. You've got to ask yourself what's going on there at the moment.
But didn't that lady, do you remember there was something about
on
a
the
lady
television.
walking?
Yeah. She was a television presenter, and she walked on with a placard saying, "This is all a lie. Believe it."
Wrong, yeah.
Mm.
And
didn't she
was arrested.
She's been snapped up by another TV station in Germany or something. Did you read that?
Yes, she has. Yes, German television. Yes,
it was German.
So she managed to get out
of Russia. Then.
Looks like it. Yeah.
Oh, first of all, they couldn't find her, did they? She just disappeared. The lawyers couldn't find her. Nobody could find her. They was keeping it really close to the chest. So obviously they found her and they've got her out. Because I reckon she'd have ended up in some far-flung place in the gulag. Yeah.
In Siberia.
Yeah.
So why has Britain done a deal with Rwanda for immigrants? What's that about?
Good question. Well presented. Boris did a big thing this afternoon. A big what's name down in Kent, and Priti Patel was in Rwanda signing this deal that we're going to give them £140 million to take on processing illegal migrants. It's going to be interesting to see whether this happens or not.
And the Navy have taken over
patrolling
patrolling from Border Force.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that started
basically
a few months ago.
Yeah. Well, basically, they're going to, as soon as they arrive in Dover, they're going to be put on a boat or a plane or whatever and shipped straight to Rwanda to be processed. The idea is to try and stop them.
They're going via an RAF base, ex-RAF
base.
It?
All right.
They're going up there first, and then
that'd be Manston, I guess.
No, it's not Manston. It's not Lakenheath. I can't remember where it was.
Mildenhall.
Could be, yeah.
Now Mildenhall's American.
It's still American, is it?
Yeah, it's still American.
Anyway, they I think they're staying over there, and then they're looking like that might. But just what's our ties with Rwanda? Is that a Commonwealth country? Doesn't spring to mind.
No. It used to be.
Mm.
But after their sort of genocide,
this is it, isn't it?
I can understand.
Bounds. It's now an up and coming country, and what they need is funds, and I guess part of this deal is funding some of their projects that. So we'll see.
The idea is to strangle out the black market. So as they're saying to them, if you come over here, you will be shipped off to Rwanda and not taken into our social system.
Yeah.
I mean, in the long run, £140 million compared to what we're spending on social system to house them, keep them, and whatever, to keep them in hotels, is a drop in the ocean. I mean, it's costing hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds to house these and find homes for them and find something else for them and process them, whereas sending them out there.
Isn't it costing us £5 million a day at the moment?
something like that. It's a lot of money.
It's
And
£125 per person per day to keep them in the hotels.
Yeah.
And there's about 40-odd thousand at the last count. And there were 600 came in, I think, yesterday.
Last year alone, there was nearly 38,000. Came across. And what they're trying to do is stem the money away from the black market and say to them, well, if you come here, you'll just be sent away. So in a way, it'll hopefully stop the black market and people trying to cross. That's what they're trying to do, because it's costing us. We're paying the French to supposedly police this, and basically they're doing fuck all. They don't really want to.
I'm just looking on the BBC at the moment, and what they're looking at initially is particularly single men.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the majority of them are single men.
Anybody coming in a boat or a lorry will be given a one-way ticket for the 4,000-mile trip to Rwanda, where they will be processed.
Yep.
And if successful, long-term accommodation in the African country. Interesting.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I mean, I've not been in the military, but I've worked in Africa on a number of occasions, and I've had people openly say, please get me into your country, from South Africa, from Ethiopia. And you just laugh it off and say no and move on. But I think they're trying to also segregate between genuine Ukrainian want to get in the country against. I mean, the tragedy is if thousands of Ukrainians are crossing Europe and some want to come to Britain, the people smugglers will see this is the greatest opportunity they've ever seen.
Yeah,
correct.
Right. While these people are coming, we'll sneak some extras in. We'll say nothing. Everybody will be happy. We get our money, and they never find out who we are. Rwanda's a hell of a long way from Europe as well. The Danes do something not dissimilar, as do, I believe, the Australians.
Well, the Australians have got an island, haven't they? I think they've closed it down now. But basically, they was any migrants, illegal immigrants, or whatever you want to call them, who were coming in illegally, they shipped them off to this island and said, you stay out there until we process you. And if we're not happy, we'll send you home. So,
all those boats that they were dragging back to Indonesia.
Well, yeah, I mean, when the Vietnamese boat people
stopped that malarkey, didn't they?
Well, the Vietnamese boat people, when they were coming across, they were literally towing the boats back to Vietnam and saying, we don't want you.
Your problem.
Yeah, it's your problem. You get on with it. It sounds wrong, but in a way, it stemmed all the smuggling and the profiteering from it. And that's what they did. I mean, we ought to do the similar thing to these migrants that are trying to cross the channel, time on the way back to France.
That's what they're doing, isn't it?
Yeah, say, go back to France, we don't want you.
Well, there's an ongoing there's an ongoing.
If they go through the legal channels, I can understand it. But the way they're coming in, they're economic migrants, not seeking asylum. They're only coming here for one reason, because
to get a better
most
life.
European countries don't really want to deal with them. They just want to get rid of them and pass them on to someone else. Merkel started all this off with her flaming open door.
We're back to politics again, aren't we? We're back to politics again.
Sorry. Everything revolves around politics at the moment, I'm afraid.
You just got to laugh, haven't you? Sorry.
Yeah, it's
it's a joke of being a civil servant. That's why I can laugh about it. That's it.
Well, that's the problem. It's all politics in a way. Everything revolves around it, which is a shame. Okay. But anybody got any ideas on Extinction Rebellion and what to do with them?
Oh, Stinking Rebellion. That's more politics. How about we talk about have you got any racing planned this year, Bex?
For the boat?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
gonna taking part in Cows Week or round the
I'm not gonna
island?
I'm not going to take part in Cows Week this year. I've got a very busy summer at work due to staff shortages, and I did Cows Week last year. We had some success, but what I realised was it wasn't really a holiday because it was in my backyard. So
Well, at least you could
Well,
go
at least you
home
know the waters.
but my good friend Stu, who we've sailed together for 15, 20 years or something or other, he had a boat for years of various boats, and I sail for him, and now he sails for me, and we do the two-handed together. And if we do two-handed, the deal is I do the running around, and he does the driving. Whereas if we do fully crewed, I do the driving, then he does the main sheet and tactics, and I'm happy. That's my choice. So he said, "I'm not talking to you. I want to do Cowswick." I just don't want to do it this year. They made such a pig's ear of so many things last year. And for a 30-foot boat, I have a 30-foot boat. Guess how much the entry fee is?
Go on.
Ridiculous.
Go on, take a guess. For a 6-day regatta.
1,500.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not quite as much as that.
Not quite.
It's £650.
Six.
Outrageous.
That's still a lot.
And
And
it
I
doesn't
suppose you've got-
include the berthing.
No,
Doesn't
you've got
include
birthday on top
anything.
of that,
So,
food.
well, so you're looking at about £1,000 then, aren't you? Maybe
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. So we'll do the two-handed stuff. I like doing the two-handed. It's quite fun. Low key, just Royal Southampton. We did one last weekend. Got a second in that, which we were quite content with. We'll do because it's a J boat.
Fastnet. Do the fastnet.
No, I've done 8 of those. Not out of the sight of land and not out in the dark. I've been there, done that. So I'll do the Royal Southern Regattas, which are a great little event. They do 4 of them out for Hamble, and it's where the biggest fleet tend to race out of, and we know lots of people sailing there. So I take the boat round from Hornet on a Friday, have the weekend up there, and bring it back afterwards and collapse in a heap on my desk on Monday morning. We'll probably do the J Cup, which is a J boat only event that's in Cowes this year, and we'll do the Women's Open Keelboat Championship and a bit more two-handed. But by the time you've done that, that's like 8 or 9 weekends, which doesn't sound a lot, but trying to get people to commit is really hard. And I need 6 or 7 really. I need.
Tiring.
Pardon?
I should think it's quite tiring doing all those weekends.
Yeah, but
Not
that's
actually
over 6
relaxing.
months. That's over 6
Yeah.
months. But it's
Over those
I'd
weekends,
rather-
you don't get time off. It's really not relaxing. It's quite physical.
Not at all. Yeah,
All
and
right.
then I work quite a lot of weekends anyway, so it's I would like to do more. I enjoy it, but I treated myself to a new headsail and spinnaker this year, which made a significant impact in the savings. But the good news is the jib's really nice. We tried the jib out last weekend for the first time, and that's definitely better than the one we had. And the spinnaker, we haven't really. It was better, but we haven't seen it in more wind to know how good it is against our competitors. And
Still, a second's not bad.
the second's not bad. Yeah, we were never going to win that race because the guy that won it's got a boat that's really good in light wind. We got close. I think we were about. Well, we know where we went wrong. Yeah, there's always a story, isn't there? Oh, if we'd have done this and that, then we'd have had that 15 seconds, and he only beat us by 14. So yeah, we'd have definitely won that race. And, but no, it was good. It was in the Royal
It's a
Southern.
bit
I'm
like
not.
fisherman's arms, isn't it? Well, how big's that fish?
No, whatever it is for that. But no, it's good. So I like a bit of racing, but I like a bit of cruising with it as well. So see what happens. My shed is looking decidedly empty, having loaded a lot of the sails back on last weekend. I've just got to put my big main back on, so I've got a racing main and a cruising main. So we'll do that at some point. But yeah, it's just never ending, is it? I was just typing away, thinking of all the jobs I need to do on it while I was talking to you. So I put those on the phone. The winches need servicing. So I haven't done those yet this winter. The engine isn't getting a service this year because I had one last year. So yeah, it's joys of being a boat owner, but it's fun. I'm very lucky to be able to do it. And for those of you that aren't aware, it's called Brenda's J. Everybody goes, "Oh, are you Brenda?" And I'm like, "No." And well, who's Brenda? So Brenda was stick with me on this, my father's mother's brother's wife, my great aunt. My father's mother's brother's wife, and she was called Brenda, and didn't have any children of her own. Wasn't for a lack of trying, to quote the 100-year-old one day. And she she very kindly left her estate to me and my siblings, rather than my father, to avoid a layer of inheritance tax. And so I bought a boat. And she used to live Wooton Bridge on the Isle of Wight, Wooton Creek.
All right, yeah.
So when I was teaching at joint services or examining, I'd quite often take a boat up the river, and she'd come out of the house and we'd give her a little wave. So it felt right to call it Brenda's J, because it's a J boat. And on the main bulkhead, I've got half a dozen pictures of the great Aunt Brenda with the dog and the nephew and everything else. So that was Peter Wickham Marketing's call, who's the club commodore who weighed it for me a few years ago. So that's why it's called Brenda's J. So yeah, I think it suits. I think it. I think it
changing
suits,
the subject to canal boating. My wife's uncle has a barge on the canal. Beautiful barge. I mean, it's all done up really
Which
nicely.
canal?
He works out of Stourbridge. He runs from there. He lives, he lives in Berkeley, so he sort of runs up to the Birmingham Ring and around the Birmingham Ring.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And that way. But that's good. It's enjoyable. We've been on it once.
I've got this silly idea that I ought to take my paddleboard with a load of lightweight kit and do some paddling around the canals. I've got lots to do in my silly ideas, but that appeals to me because it's flat and it's not bumpy.
I can understand that. It's a lot easier. It's all on one level.
It's all on one level. The only nightmare with a paddleboard and canaling, in my experience, having paddled on the Bridgewater and Taunton Canal a few times, you have to lift it over all the blooming locks and portages.
Well, I don't think you want to go through the locks.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like ball ache. But yeah, hey ho. It's a nice pastime.
That one where it's got 17 lock gates. He went through that a while ago. Sent us a video of him going through. It took bloody ages. He said because you got to go up all the steps to get to the top of it.
It's one of Devices. Is it Devices? Is that one?
I think it's that one. Yeah. It's like 17 lock gates in succession to just get up this hill. It's huge.
We did Neptune's staircase when we went through the Cali Canal every year. That's a flight of 7, and that was
that's it. It's Neptune, isn't it? In
Neptune's
Caledonia.
staircase.
Yeah.
But that's quite handy because there's lock keepers that do all the work for you.
They do all that bit for you, do they?
Yeah. I think it's all on buttons actually.
Oh,
I was going to say most of that's on buttons. That one. But a lot of them are hand.
Is that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely. And a crimming.
Yeah.
Up you go.
I was fortunate enough many years ago to go from Gothenburg to Stockholm via the canals and the lakes.
Yeah.
And
Yotta Canal.
The Yotta Canal, exactly. And that was half and half. Some of it was this, and some of it was push button with a keeper. But that was a good trip. That was a really good trip.
And if you lose your cranking handle, you're buggered.
So Nigel,
anyway,
what's the one that you're most looking forward to doing this year?
Oh dear.
Put you on the spot.
Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag, really, Tim. I'm heading over to Alberta very shortly to see family. I've got quite long connections in Edmonton, and I've still got a very distant, well, we all call them aunties, who is of Derbyshire and left in the 1950s just to have a bit of a visit, married and stayed, and she's still there. And I'd like to see my old Auntie Beryl because she's not been too well as of late. So from a personal family point, it's good to catch up with family, even if I'm only going to Alberta for a week. So my head will be nowhere near where my backside is for half the time with jet lag. But then certainly the Greenland trips, and hopefully within a week of getting back from Alberta, I'll be in Bergen on a sea kayak, pottering up and down the islands and such, if I can pull that trip off. And I've never been much of a sailor. I mean, I've worked on cruise ships. That's not sailing. I've been on little, 3 crew boats on reservoirs. That's about as big as it gets. I have been on a stand-up paddleboard, but I assure you, when they remove your toes and the ball of one of your feet, and you have no ability to balance whatsoever, a canal is about as exciting as you can manage. And you've got legs like Elvis Presley for most of the time, trying to stay upright. But the sea kayaking is interesting because I like the water generally, but I'm also a leave no trace instructor, so I'm actually teaching the ability to move around the world without causing any trace of your being there and environmental damage. But the Greenland trips are always fabulous. I adore Greenland, and it isn't far away. I think we were saying earlier, we think it's an age away because it's cold and there's not many people there, and there isn't a KFC or a Starbucks, and we can't sunbathe, and we can't party till 3 o'clock in the morning and bounce up and down on beer all night, because it's not a climate people are used to. Everybody wants to head south for the warmth, and there's a few of us crazy old sods who want to go north for the cold. and we're happy to test ourselves. We're happy to be in an environment that's not just, well, hey, here we go, let's party till 9 a.m, be sick, drink beer and wake up in a mess. Some of us actually want to go, and I hear what people are saying about it's not exactly a holiday, because you never get any downtime very often. But I just come back so refreshed from trips like that, because it's not work and it's not home. And as Julie Andrews very famously said, day-to-day living was what drove her down. And it's the differences. But I'll be going to the Dolomites as well, and anybody who's skied or knows northern Italy, it's the only place in the world I know where you can enjoy fabulous mountaineering and come off the hill and have pizza and wine and pasta like you can't believe. And food plays a huge part in my trip.
Absolutely. Whereabouts in the Dolomites are you going? I always stopped in Corvara.
Okay, well, by complete chance, in the Himalayas, I met an Italian mountaineer from Selva in Val Gardena, and we've stayed great friends. So I'll be staying in Selva, and I'll literally just book a flight, rent a car, go up, stay in with him or at a little B&B or somewhere locally with some friends, and we just go and wander off up the hills and have a thoroughly damn good time. And yes, Corvara, the Colfosco Bowl, around Elmo, and round there, stunning, lovely, stunning country.
Out of interest, have you been watching that Stanley Tucci's Italy, A Taste of Italy, where he's going around all the different regions of Italy and seeing what the local cuisine is? I mean, once you get up sort of past Rome and beyond, a lot of it isn't pizza and pasta. It's something completely different.
Well, the thing is, where I go, and Tim will know this well, the area is what they call the Ladin, which is a sort of semi-autonomous area that used to be part Austrian until the First World War.
Yeah.
And is now Italian, but again, semi-autonomous. So you either get fabulous Austrian food, Italian food, and then local Ladin dishes, which are a bit like what I want to eat. They're usually very heavy. It's like fighting food. It's solid.
Yeah.
Stuff,
solid.
Carbohydrates.
Just give me the meat and the polenta and get on with it. But also you get excellent canoodles, strudels. You get Italian pastas. The wines are excellent, and they're all sort of compacted into this area where there's these beautiful mountains and areas to climb and ski and whatever else. So it's a real mixed bag up there, but it's done beautifully well. And you'll be in a village that's Italian. You'll do 2 ski lifts, and they'll be speaking German, even though they're in Italy. And you'll do another ski lift, and they'll speak Ladin, and you'll come back and they'll be speaking Italian again.
Well, the good thing about that Stanley Tucci's Taste of Italy is he's going to the little working class places as well as the high prime restaurants, you know, the Michelin starred ones. And it's nice to see, because he's not just sticking to one sort of area of cuisine, and it's all the 5-star high echelon food. He does show that, but he also shows living with the families and eating their local food, what they would be eating, all the cheap, stodgy, everyday food, which is just as good.
I found a lot of this. I've done a lot of travelling in Southeast Asia, and I would eat on a street market every night.
Yeah,
because you've seen it cooked in front of you. You know it's fresh. It's been cooked in front of your eyes, and it's straight down you. And I mean, how fresh do you want it? It's not come out of a freezer. It's not served at some ridiculous price, and it's cooked on a fire in front of you for next to no. I'll eat that every day.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I'll draw the line at the rats and the
bit hygiene.
Grasshoppers are fine. There's nothing wrong with eating deep fried grasshopper. Yeah, rats and weird grubs I get. I remember distinctly being in Malaya where you bought live bats, and people took them home to cook them. Live fruit bats, just with their wings elastic banded up, and off they went with this live fruit bat. And other parts of Asia where literally you'll get your little 50cc scooter and you'll go home with a live pig strapped to a bamboo stretcher on the back of your scooter as you whip down the streets, and they kill it in the backyard. Yeah, very different world.
Yeah. So last time I was in Corvara, we stopped in a Hotel Priat, which is a little family-run guest house. Fabulous, and it was a little bit of a walk through the village to get to the lifts. But one lift pass, you can ski 1,250 kilometers. And I mean, we did the Celeronda pretty much most days. We took the a bus up to the cable car that takes us up to the top, that takes us down into the hidden valley.
Oh, the Lag at Zoe.
Oh, it's beautiful.
That's the cable car you're after. It's a bit like the Richard Burton Where Eagles Dare job, but they'll never let me on the roof. I've asked. They will not let me They will not let me open the hatch and get on the top. They are the most boring sods ever. They really are.
Well, the first time I did it, we came off the top there, and just as I've done a couple of turns, and I'm picking up speed, so I'm putting a really hard turn, and I thought, some silly sod's lost his ski. It was mine. I still got the binding attached to my boot, and just ripped the binding out of the ski. And it's
what is interesting to see there, it depends on your interest, but because the Lag at Zoe was the front line in the First War at one point.
Yeah.
And you can ski off, but you can also walk straight down through the tunnels where they blew them out, tragically to shoot and bomb and all the rest of it to each other. And I went over a couple of years ago down through the tunnels and onto what's called the Martini Ledge, which was where they built basically bunkhouses, wooden bunkhouses into the walls to sleep in, and then, stick a rifle out the front every morning and have a pot shot at the opposition and then nip back in again. I mean, it was tragedy, really, but it was warfare of its day. They've literally blew up mountains and they a bit like we did on the Western Front.
Yeah. But that was an interesting ski down on one ski.
Well, yeah.
Recover the ski.
Well, at least you've got feet. I mean, can you imagine it with me? One ski and half a foot. I mean, that really is outrageous.
How did you lose your foot?
It was in a supermarket trolley. I forgot it. No, I had severe frostbite quite 20 odd years ago. I had severe frostbite, so I lost.
He does a great talk about it.
I lost the left foot and the left front of the left foot, toes and ball, and I lost the toes on the right foot. And it's bizarre, really, because how do you balance? Carefully. I mean, bizarrely, and Tim knows this story, but I chose to not only keep on skiing, but to take up telemark skiing with no toes.
All right, yeah.
And I bumped into 2 RAF medics one day who said, "You're skiing telemark?" Because that was a bit odd. I was out in France. And I said, "Yeah, okay." And then they noticed my hands, as in that. And they said, "Have you had frostbite?" I said, "Yeah." "Have you got any toes?" "No." "Well, you can't ski telemark. That's impossible." I said, "That's a shame, because my skis are here and I'm off. I'll see you in a bit." And they followed me down and thought, "You're mad, aren't you?" I said, "Well, it doesn't take very hard to work that one out, did it?" And hence I ended up meeting said brigadier, whatever he was, down at Meribel, as in, because that's where the inter-services were at the time. I think you'll know better, Tim. And that's where I ended up meeting yourselves, Tim, by coming out onto the Telemark Association's championships in Rauris in Austria at the time.
Yeah.
And the number of people that said, "What you are doing is physically impossible." I said, "Well, that's a shame, because nobody ever told me."
Yeah.
And we all work with these assumptions that, asking if you can balance. People say to you, "You can't walk properly without big toes." The people that tell you that are people with big toes.
Correct. I mean,
So
you can achieve anything if you want to.
I'm not as,
So
I can't run anymore unless you chase me really badly with a spear. I can't run. But I can still walk.
Jam
I can still
Zulus
climb.
everywhere.
But the interesting thing about that, just touching on Afghan briefly, and put you in a box as a disability because you're missing a limb or whatever. Apologies for doing that. I did a job a few years ago for the British Limbless Ex-Servicemen's Association, and I took 4 of them sailing in Greece for a week and taught them how to sail. And one was above the knee amputee, and he'd lost his limb in Afghan on an IED somewhere along the line. The other guy another guy was an ex-Navy who'd lost his lower leg in a road traffic accident whilst on duty in the Navy, and he was a helicopter pilot. He continued his career and went on to become a civilian pilot and flying some form of jet plane. The other guy was a bit messed up. He was I did some signposting for him afterwards. He'd lost his sight basically in an IED. But the interesting thing about this whole thing was halfway through the week, the 4th guy had lost his limb by stepping on an IED the day the Falklands got surrendered. The day the Argentinians surrendered the Falklands.
Yeah.
And he was like, the war was over, and then stood on something. So he was one of those. Anyway, they actually said to me, he said, "This has been amazing." And I'm like, "Oh no, what have I done?" And he said, "We were taught when we lost our limbs not to show them. We were taught to wear long trousers. And I haven't worn long trousers since. I haven't worn short trousers since. And we want to go and buy some shorts." And I just thought, wow. And the guy who had the limb missing from Afghan with a above the knee amputee, he was a real character. And he, at the end of the day, he used to just sit down and put his leg here, and then had a beer, the thing for taking beer bottle lids off.
Yeah.
And we were in a flotilla, so there was loads of kids around, and it was great. But it was really interesting how the mindset had changed over that period of time. With this guy had come out of Afghan, and it was like a badge of honor, whereas the guys that were damaged in the 70s and 80s, it was like, shh, don't tell anybody. So it was, I thought that was brilliant. And then we were talking about post-traumatic stress disorder and mental health issues earlier. And this guy had a stick, and he didn't like using his stick because he was a bit blind, and he walked into a tree one night, and it was just trying to normalize them. But at the same time, it's okay not to be okay. And,
well, I mean,
but the fact that you're missing fingers and you're carrying on, it's just fantastic. And what a great example to all those people out there.
A lot of it's down to mindset as well. I mean, I was very bloody minded when this happened about, I will be back on the mountain and whatever. And I teach professionally about it. I speak professionally about it. But I've discovered a shop called Paper Tiger, which is a very bright games shop. There are lots of shopping centres have them, and I discovered things like this. Now these are great when you've got no fingers, because you need fingers to play football. And people buy me this stuff now. I mean, the other week, somebody came up with, "Oh, you've got no fingers, so I bought you this." And what else did we get recently? We've got, just lately we've got finger puppets. So
you need to take those down the charity shop, yeah?
Oh, no, I actually take these into schools and show children how to do it. Because they'll say, "But you've not got fingers," says who?
Okay.
I've got artificial limbs. I've got artificial push on fingers. My God, they look like something out of a horror movie. But I've still, and I don't have legs and arms and such, but I work with something called Becoming X, and we've got Mark Omeroyd on the team, who will quite openly show you that he's got both legs missing and all the rest of it, and it looks like something out of a space film. I think what has changed massively is the prosthetic. In the 60s and 70s, they did look like something out of The Bride of Chucky. And they were very basic. There wasn't the robotics, the lightweight airframes, metals that almost looked like something out of Terminator.
But this again comes out of war.
Yeah. But what we've created now are artificial limbs, particularly when people have lower below knee amputations. You can't tell.
Yeah.
You can't tell. Yeah. Above the knee, you can. Below the knee, you couldn't tell. And if anybody watches The Last Leg on Channel 4, Channel 5, it's bloody hilarious. And they'll do stunts just for fun and take their artificial leg off halfway through it. And it's that, I don't like the word normalised, but it's just the fact we're still people.
But this comes back to
the thing is, people see the prosthetic and not the person in the older style prosthetics.
Yeah,
because as you say, they were like the Bride of Chucky and Chucky himself. Nowadays, with all the sort of modern style prosthetics, and you've got the Invictus Games and the Paralympics and stuff like that, it's becoming normalised, which is a good thing, because there are a lot of people, not just through war, but through accidents and other things, illness and such like that, who lose limbs, and they need to be normalised rather than looked at as some form of shame that they've lost part of their body.
Well, it's the same for mental health, isn't it? Mental health is becoming more recognised, more. It's not demonised anymore, and people are happy to talk about mental health issues, and it's becoming, for one another, normalised to be able to talk about your problems. So
I mean,
anyway, we're down to the last minute or so of the show. It's flashed by this last 2 hours. I'd just like to thank my guests. Nigel, again, brilliant to catch up with you. Becky, you've been a star.
Thank you, Nigel.
As always. And Harry, thanks for coming in again.
So, nice to meet you all.
You too.
Stay safe and happy Easter.
Absolutely.
Happy Easter to all
Bring
of
on
you.
the chocolate eggs.
Yeah.
and the grandson's chocolate eggs and the wife's chocolate eggs. Everybody else chocolate eggs.
Don't tell them.
Don't tell them.
Don't tell them, Pike.
Yeah, don't tell him, Pike.
Right. Thanks, guys. Everybody's going to bring you down, and I'll end the show.
Okay.
Take care, guys. Good night.
Bye.
Well, what a show we've had tonight. Really, really enjoyed the chat with Nigel, Becky, and Harry. Again, next week, I'm not quite sure what we're going to do next week. Are we going to do a special, or are we going to just do another open forum like tonight with some special guests? If you'd like to come on the show, just ping me a message and I'll ping you the link to come into the show. Don't forget to click the like button, put comments in the chat box, and share it with your friends. Tell everybody. What a great show this is. So until next week, I'd just like to thank everybody that's watched, and please join the show again next week, same time, same place, Thursday from 7 o'clock until 9 o'clock British summertime.
The Tim Heale Thirsty Thursday live stream from 7 until 9 weekly.